It's 4th of July weekend. I just got back from a run. I'm 24 years old, and I will not be seeing friends or family this weekend because I'll be working. Lately in my life, I've been getting a lot of pushback about, hey Alex, why do you work so much? Hey Alex, don't you think you need work-life balance? Along the lines of, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, you're in a decent spot now. Why don't you ease up, get a little more work-life balance, get a social life, enjoy a holiday, stuff like that. 2 weeks ago, my business partner, Antonio, got married. On that trip, I was able to really reflect on my answer to everyone in my life who's asking me, what is the point? Why are you working hard? Why are you not enjoying your 20s? I think a lot of people looking at what I do and what Antonio I do, first reaction is money won't make you happy. You need to stop just chasing money. It's not worth it. I've been running so hard the last few years that I haven't taken the time to really reflect on why do I do what I do and why do I practice a scorched earth mentality with my work. This isn't some grind set, like look at how hard I work. I'm saying, I want to clarify that. I'm not saying I have some ironclad willpower and I'm just David Goggins over here staying in on the 4th of July weekend, all this stuff. I'm saying I have finally identified what it is that makes me enthusiastically make the trades I do. The trades of not having a social life. Not doing anything on 4th of July weekend when I'm 24 years old. 2 weeks ago at Antonio's wedding, I finally had enough downtime and reflection time to really think about what my why is. And my answer is that none of it is about me. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about motivation and more specifically, how I don't use motivation anymore to do what I do. I don't use motivation to stay in all weekend and work. I don't use motivation to get up early. After you watch this video, if you take the time to reflect on the things I've said, I caution you to use it responsibly because for me, I've abused my health, I've lost relationships, and I've damaged my mental health because of how powerful the right why is to achieving your dreams. I'll be completely honest. When I started my real estate investing career, specifically started getting into wholesaling, I was 19 years old and my YouTube feed was a lot of car videos and mansion tours and luxury condo tours. So I'm gonna be fully transparent. When I was 19 years old and I got into real estate, my undeveloped brain was just like, me want nicer car, me want nice apartment. And I was so naive and not self-aware that I didn't even realize too, that most of the reason why I wanted those things is because I wanted how I thought it would make people look at me, treat me, react to me, so on and so forth. Because I struggled with from like 8 years old till probably still now. I am violently insecure, and my motivation, my why for getting into entrepreneurship back when I was in high school, like the other video I talked about, I was trying to get into SEO and SMA and just trying all these different hustles because I believed I was not worthy of love or people wouldn't like me unless I was useful. You know, I could make a whole video talking about why I think that is, but that's not the point. The point is, when I started real estate, my why sucked. And if I never found a new why, I would have never built what Antonio and I have now. Let me explain. When I was in college, while I was wrestling, and like in the previous videos where I've talked about how I decided when I was going to college, I was going to go to college and focus on wrestling and figure out my entrepreneurship path afterwards. Well, when I was in college, around the 2021 time, I'm sure you know all about the craziness that was going on with crypto and stocks and all that stuff. And I, with the limited money I did have before I started wholesaling, was throwing it into stupid meme stocks and crypto coins, NFTs, really dumb stuff. And long story short, the money I did have saved that was supposed to get me through the summers and just kind of be my spending money while I'm in college, I burnt it. And I didn't really tell anyone about it. I didn't tell my family about it or anything because I was so ashamed of it and embarrassed and I felt so stupid. But I wasn't gonna tell anyone about it. I wasn't gonna tell my parents how I was struggling and I didn't have money to pay rent through the summer. So here's what I did. I got 2 summer jobs, one working at the lake and then one laying sod. I would do this in between practices or on off days from wrestling. And I'm gonna digress a little bit here, but I reflect back on those times when I would have less than $500 in my checking account and I would go work all week and bust my ass. The money I was making was just enough to pay my rent and get by, because luckily I had a food stipend and I was able to get food from wrestling, stuff like that. It was enough, but I had a girlfriend at the time and I wanted to do stuff. I wanted to go on little trips. I wanted to go out to eat, and I wanted some nicer things. And that is the genesis of why I started to recognize hey, money's important. And I did not feel like I was being rewarded fairly for the amount of effort I was putting in. So my why, when we started wholesaling, it was all about me. At the time, I was driving a 25-year-old car. All I was eating was just the food that wrestling gave me. And I was living with 6 roommates. So my motivation, those months where we were making zero money from wholesaling real estate, that's all I wanted. I wanted a more reliable car. I wanted a nicer car. I wanted to live somewhere a little nicer for myself. I wanted to be able to take trips more, and I wanted to eat out more. That was my why. And with any hustle, a lot of times that's enough. That's enough for you to get your first dollars in entrepreneurship. For wholesaling, that was enough. That was enough for us to be willing to cold call a few hours every day, hustle, and get our first few deals. But going from making your first dollars to consistently making, say, 5 figures to 6 figures a month is a whole different beast. And that why that I described is not gonna take you there. The stuff like nicer car, nicer house, more vacations, stuff like that. It's like trying to put regular gasoline in a rocket that's supposed to get you to outer space. That why it is not a potent enough fuel, it is not a powerful enough fuel for you to get everything you ever dreamt and desired. So what is? All right. Real estate's really hard, and growing a portfolio is gonna be really hard, and it's gonna take longer than you think it should, and it's gonna be harder than you think it should be. It's gonna be harder than you ever expect it could be, and the timeline to you actually feeling a reward from it is gonna be much longer than you think. If the pain and stress and struggle Antonio and I have had to go through and continue to go through was just for ourselves, I wouldn't be doing this. If this was all just for me, to have a nicer lifestyle and travel more and eat at nicer dinners, whatever, I wouldn't do it. I'd just work a W-2, invest in the S&P, and just wait till I was older to retire. I'd work a comfy 9 to 5, get done at 5, have some hobbies, have some fun. However, the reason I do this, and I know the reason why Antonio does it, is for my unborn children. It's for the family I don't have yet. And for the last year, since Antonio has been engaged, I've seen him work harder than I've ever seen him work before. When we were in college, it was very much we want to wholesale a little more so we can go on a spring trip break with the boys, or we can go out to a nice restaurant, or rent a little nicer place. We were in college, and we just wanted money to have fun with ourselves and our friends and stuff like that. But since we graduated, and I've seen Antonio now, since he's been engaged, I've just witnessed him work to such another gear. And I too, seeing that Antonio is about to be married and having kids, I've worked the hardest I've ever worked in my life. I've had a scorched earth mentality with our business and scaling our portfolio. Scorched earth as in I've disregarded my health. I've dropped the ball in some relationships, personal and family, stuff like that. But it's because my why is so that I can take care of my unborn kids, my future family, my parents, my brother, my whole family. And when it stopped being about myself and it became more of a deal with God, of God, I will work myself to the bone. I sacrifice my 20s, I give it to you. And in return, I want to be able to protect my family from anything. If I have a kid that has a unique illness that needs more expensive medical treatment, I want to be able to afford that. And this last year, I'm close with Antonio, I've known him now probably about 6 years total. And thinking about the fact that he's close to having his own family, it just flipped a switch in my head. It set me to another gear. And it's not even about my family, it's about his family. And the fact that we need this business to be able to take care of myself and my family, him, himself, his family. You don't sacrifice your health and burn yourself out and work like a dog when it's just about you. When it's about the people you love, there's no amount of work that's too much. You find a way. In the beginning, I got into real estate I was just thinking about, I want a nicer car, I want to live in a nicer place, I want a lifestyle, I want to be rich, all the fun, flashy stuff. And then when it started to get really hard, it made me realize very quickly that if it's just about me, that's not a good enough why. And it's not worth it. If it's just about me, I should just go work a job. It has to be selfless. Because if it's a selfish pursuit, when shit gets hard, you won't have a good enough reason to keep going. And I know Hormozi talks a lot about his motivation is he just wants to be useful and really needed. I think he has more of a worldly why, of like it's not about him or really his family, it's about like what he can give to the world. So, but I still think it's the same concept of selflessness. Now all this is probably stuff you've heard before, like yes, you need to have a why that's bigger than yourself. You need a strong why, like I'm doing it for my kids, I'm doing it for my wife. So let me break down how it directly connects to real estate. So here are the areas where you're gonna need the most motivation and willpower and the strongest why to get through to succeed as a real estate investor. Area number one, rejection. Whether you're starting your career as a wholesaler, a realtor, or a real estate investor, the first area you're gonna need a really strong why and willpower is rejection. In order to get great deals, the kind of deals I show all the time that create all this wealth and deals that take care of you and your family, you're gonna have to make a lot of offers. You're gonna have to look at a lot of deals. You're gonna have to make a lot of offers that get rejected. You're gonna have to sometimes get rejected in a very painful way. So speaking from our experience, we would get cussed out, told to go F ourselves all the time. However, our why, little 19-year-old brains, was me want nicer stuff. So for us, that was enough to stomach the rejection and being told, hey, go screw yourself. I'm not selling at a discount. Okay, fine, call, go to the next one. For you, some people need a stronger why to handle that rejection. Some people's baseline settings for how they react to rejection, they just got thicker skin, and their why could literally just be, I want a sandwich. Like it can be, the bar can be super low for some people. For others, like myself, if you're really, say, socially anxious or can't stomach not being liked, you're gonna need a stronger why. Someone who's hypersensitive to rejection and someone not liking them, you're gonna need a why that is pretty borderline life or death. Like if I do not keep making these calls, someone's gonna die. The next area is the uncertainty and anxiety that comes with escrow, getting under contract on a property. And the thing is, if you're sourcing off-market deals, specifically discounted off-market deals, messy situations, you need to be okay with getting emotionally tied to a property, getting all excited that you're gonna close on a property just to find out lending didn't approve, title was messy, stuff like that. So kind of going off that first area, you're gonna run into getting places under contract, thinking you got a deal, you're getting so excited, you're almost there, and then bang, that's ripped away from you. So if you have a non-existent why, the crash from getting your hopes up that you're gonna get a deal to not getting a deal breaks a lot of people. The next area is the chaos that can happen in a remodel. Your first few remodels, anything that seems to be going wrong is gonna feel like the end of the world because you've never seen it before. Odds are you've never experienced having one scope of work when you're in escrow and then finding out when you get into the remodel, the budget goes up, there's bigger problems, there's stuff that comes up and you're gonna have to spend more than you were okay with. And a lot of investors who don't make it in real estate will have a few remodels go like that. And for them, they can't stomach getting those phone calls, hey, subfloor is messed up, it's gonna be an extra $5,000, or hey, foundation is messed up, it's gonna be an extra $12,000. Those problems in a remodel are enough for them to decide that it's not worth it. They don't wanna deal with that anymore. They can't stomach that feeling of getting that phone call and they tap out. They're like, not worth it for me anymore. That is another huge filter, is stuff like that coming up, not only in the remodel, but long-term when you own the property. There's like a graveyard. I've been told from investors much bigger than myself of the graveyard that happens between 5 and 10 houses. Basically, you have enough volume to have a lot of problems, but you don't have enough volume to really have escape velocity in your wealth and cash flow, stuff like that. So your first 5 houses, there's a strong chance that you will have to replace an air conditioner or have a sewer line or have to replace a roof. And when you only have 5 houses and they're bringing in, say, $2,000 a month in cash flow or less, and you have to replace an $8,000 air conditioner, a lot of investors don't have a strong enough reason to keep buying houses. The solution to when that happens is to keep buying houses. And unfortunately, sorry, not sorry, but it is going to be painful to keep buying houses to get you out of the 5 to 10 house graveyard. Here you are, you're buying houses, they are causing you a lot of pain and anxiety and suffering. And the only solution is to keep buying those houses that are causing you pain. And For a lot of people, that pain isn't worth it, so they tap out. But if they had a strong enough why, it doesn't matter how those houses make them feel. How they feel at any given moment, buying and remodeling houses and doing the BRRRR method doesn't matter. And I think about our first rentals and the problems I had with tenants, work orders, crappy remodels that we made mistakes on. It sucked. It made my stomach drop all the time. I had such bad anxiety, I couldn't sleep at night. I would get calls all hours of the night. The part of that is because I was bad at property management, but also because our first few properties had a lot of problems. But if I had tapped out, we would have never bought the next properties that got better, and then the next properties that were even better. And if your why on those first few properties is just about yourself, I'm telling you, the phone calls you will get, the news you will get, the problems you have to stomach are not worth it if it's for you. The next area where you need a really strong why is the consistency aspect. Once you do one deal, you got to do another, and you got to do another. You got to do 4 houses a year is roughly what I say to people if they want to retire their family in less than 10 years. To do 4 houses a year, that is a lot of volume in offers, a lot of volume in remodels, and you're not going to make it on one deal. It's not going to be one home run. And consistency is something that's really hard to communicate as the recipe for success, because it's, hey, do this action, but do this action every day for an extended period of time. That is the difficult part. And you can wake up one day feeling really motivated, and it's easy to do phone calls. But doing phone calls for one day, cold calls, calling homeowners, making offers is not what's going to make you successful. It's doing that for an extended period of time. It's, hey, I have a house under contract I'm going to close on, and I'm still going to go make more phone calls. Consistency is something that is super sensitive to what is making you do the things you do every day. What is making you get out of bed? Like, why are you doing anything you do every day? If you have always just relied on motivation, how you feel every day, good luck having consistency. If you've always relied on discipline, great. But discipline can be like a muscle. And when a muscle fatigues, output can decrease. You've heard of those stories of mothers being able to lift up cars. That adrenaline response is triggered when you make the connection between what you're doing every day and why you are doing it. Now, obviously, it's not going to be in as extreme of a dose of adrenaline every day, but the right why turns into an IV drip of adrenaline that makes you work impossibly hard regardless of how you feel. Just like the mother who, regardless of how strong she is gonna lift that car. Well, we're taking that in a lower dose to achieve our dreams. For the most aggressive growth phase in our portfolio and investment career, it's when I was running the most on fear, anxiety, and obsession. That little trio made it not only easy to work long hours, long weeks, but made it difficult not to. Made it difficult to do anything but that. And that is where you run into problems with you're sacrificing your health, you're sacrificing relationships, you're sacrificing your mental health. When you have that trio of fear, anxiety, and obsession, it's really potent and you can get a lot done, but it is a dangerous fuel source. You will make trade-offs in your life. I think running on that fuel source for too long, it will corrode you and it will eventually hit diminishing returns. A really important thing that I've realized lately is that if I am doing all of this, juicing my output by using fear, anxiety, and obsession in order to give an abundant life for my unborn children, my one-day wife, and anybody in my life, my community, I also need to know how to switch that off. And I also need to recognize that as a season. And that's something I am struggling communicating to people in my life that it is a season. Alex Hormozi talks about it all the time, but everyone tries to balance through their entire lives instead of treating lives in seasons. So lately, I have realized that I'm in a season where I'm using these tools to get the results and output I want and need for my unborn family, my family that is yet to exist. But it is extremely important that when I'm there, I can switch off of that fuel source. Also, it has helped me come to terms with right now is temporary. Some closing thoughts on this. I think not having a strong enough why is why people lean so hard into work-life balance, because if you don't have a strong enough why, it doesn't make sense to make a bunch of trade-offs for something. And I think if you find a strong enough why and you shift your mentality to seasons, you'll get better results. At least that's how it's gone for me. Because if you truly have a strong enough why, it's so powerful that you don't have a choice. Your whole life is going to change around getting one result. one outcome. With that, if you try to impose balance when you're in that headspace and you're on that pursuit, that quest, or if people in your life try to recommend balance or force you to balance, it's not going to go well. That's why I believe it has to be a season, and just know that the season will end eventually. It's temporary, and that's what's keeping me going right now. Thank you for listening. If you like content like this, where I'm being a little bit more vulnerable, just please let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe, and see you guys next time. Bye.